Says Rachel Zegler hurt the film's box office with her actions in since-deleted
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country.
And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
Rachel Zegler's dream role just turned into a PR nightmare. After Disney's Snow White remake bombed at the box office, insiders say the studio is scrambling, and Rachel's tears backstage aren't helping. What really went wrong? Some claim her own words sabotaged everything before the cameras even rolled. Let's be real, no one expected Disney's Snow White remake to crash this hard. But that's exactly what happened. After months of hype and an eye-watering $270 million production budget, the film opened with just $43 million in the US. A number so low it left both fans and critics stunned. For context, even Dumbo, long considered one of Disney's weakest live-action remakes, performed better. Ouch. This wasn't just a small stumble. It was a full-on faceplant.
Snow White producer Mark Platt's son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler.
And considering how much Disney poured into the visuals, reshoots, and marketing, this flop is being called one of the worst in the studio's history. So what went wrong? The reviews weren't just lukewarm, they were icy. Audience feedback ranged from disappointing to unwatchable, and critics didn't hold back either. And yet, there was one name that kept popping up in the middle of all this chaos: Rachel Zegler. She was supposed to be the fresh new face to breathe life into this classic. Instead, she became the center of controversy before the film even hit theaters. But how did it get to this point? What did she say that triggered so much backlash? The real story is even more dramatic than you might think. Not too long ago, Rachel Zegler was being hailed as one of Hollywood's most promising new stars. After her breakout performance in West Side Story, people were excited to see what she'd do next. Landing the lead role in Snow White seemed like a dream come true, but things started unraveling quickly. Instead of embracing the original story that made Disney a household name, Rachel publicly criticized it. She called the 1937 version outdated.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
And said the new movie was all about independence and not about love. That's fine in theory, but the way she said it rubbed people the wrong way. Then came the real kicker. In an interview, Rachel described Snow White's original love interest as a guy who stalks her.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
That line made headlines. Viewers felt she was being disrespectful to a beloved character and the legacy of Walt Disney's first animated feature. Even the son of one of the original film's creators publicly criticized her remarks. Instead of clarifying or softening her words, Rachel doubled down in interviews, making it seem like she wasn't just reinventing the character, she was throwing the original in the trash. For a studio that built its foundation on fairy tales, that was a big problem. The backlash grew quickly, and social media exploded with criticism. Memes, angry tweets, and video reactions started flooding the internet. Rachel went from rising star to public target almost overnight. But this was just the beginning of the storm. Behind the scenes, Disney knew it had a problem. The film hadn't even premiered, and the controversy was already out of control. What should have been a celebration turned into crisis management. Instead of doing the usual press tours and red carpet galas, Disney made a surprising move. They scaled everything down. The premiere was quietly moved to the El Capitan Theater, with little fanfare. No press junket, no flashy interviews, just a simple event, and that was it. Why? Because they were scared. Scared of putting Rachel in front of more microphones. Scared of what might come out in the next headline. And most importantly, scared of alienating more fans before the movie had a chance to make money. Even the cast and crew felt the tension. According to Martin Kleba, who played Grumpy in the film, the vibe was nothing like a traditional Disney premiere. It felt more like a quiet screening than a celebration. Everyone was walking on eggshells. At this point, Disney wasn't just promoting a film, it was managing a disaster. But despite all this careful planning, the movie still bombed. And the fallout wasn't just financial. The reputation of everyone involved was at stake, especially Rachel's. When the film finally dropped, it was like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. The internet exploded with reactions, most of them negative. Fans weren't just disappointed with the movie, they were angry. Clips from Rachel's past interviews resurfaced and went viral. People picked apart her every word, especially the ones where she appeared dismissive of the original film. Her comments about the prince being weird and the original story being creepy were suddenly everywhere. And then came the hashtags, calls to boycott the film. threads about Rachel's arrogance.
On her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
YouTubers made entire breakdowns of how she supposedly ruined Snow White. It didn't help that anytime someone tried to defend her, there were dozens of others sharing more examples of past statements that felt out of touch. Even promotional content from Disney started backfiring. Any attempt to make Rachel appear more relatable just opened the door to more backlash in the comment sections. The controversy spread beyond fan circles. Industry insiders started whispering that the drama was affecting potential collaborations. Directors were reportedly hesitating to attach her to future projects. It wasn't just about this one movie anymore. It was about reputation, and Rachel was in freefall. But when things hit rock bottom, she tried to fix it. Unfortunately, the apology didn't go as planned. Rachel eventually addressed the backlash, releasing a public apology. She said she never intended to offend anyone and that her words were taken out of context. She emphasized that she respected the legacy of Snow White and believed in balancing tradition with progress. But the damage had already been done. For many, the apology felt more like a PR move than a sincere effort to make things right. Critics pointed out that she hadn't apologized earlier and only spoke up once the film's numbers started dropping. Others noted that she never directly walked back some of her most controversial comments. Instead of calming the storm, the apology sparked even more debate. Comment sections were flooded with people arguing whether she was being genuine or just saving face. Some said she was being unfairly targeted and that the internet had turned her into a scapegoat. Others believed she needed to take full responsibility for how her words affected the film's perception. Regardless of where people stood, one thing was clear. The apology didn't stop the conversation. If anything, it made it louder. And while Rachel was facing the heat, the people who worked beside her were dealing with their own frustrations. While the spotlight stayed on Rachel, the rest of the cast and crew were quietly feeling the fallout. Many had worked for months, through delays, reshoots, and production issues to bring this version of Snow White to life. But all their efforts were now being overshadowed by one headline after another. Martin Kleba, who voiced Grumpy, opened up about the shift in tone surrounding the premiere. He described how the excitement vanished and how the event became more of a low-key screening. There was no celebration, no big press moment, just a quiet gathering that didn't reflect the massive scale of the film. It's not hard to imagine how disappointing that must have been for the team. For many, this was their dream project, but thanks to the controversy, it was being labeled a failure before audiences even gave it a chance. And the worst part? Most of them had nothing to do with the drama. They were caught in the crossfire, collateral damage in a story that spiraled far beyond the screen. As the days passed and the movie's numbers stalled, whispers in the industry started to grow louder. Rachel wasn't just dealing with fan backlash anymore. Hollywood itself was starting to take notice. The buzz around Rachel Zegler didn't stop after the film's release. It shifted, from angry tweets to quiet industry conversations. Word was spreading, she might be too risky to work with. Some producers and casting agents reportedly started pulling back, unsure if attaching Rachel to their projects would bring more attention or more controversy. The fear wasn't just about what she might say next, it was about the baggage that now came with her name. This isn't to say her talent was in question. Many still believe she was incredibly gifted, but in Hollywood, reputation matters as much as ability. And Rachel's image had taken a serious hit. It was a startling shift. Just months earlier, she was being described as the next big thing. Now, the same conversations included phrases like damage control, media training, and image rehab. The question hung in the air. Was Rachel being unfairly judged for a few missteps, or had she really gone too far? And perhaps more importantly, could she bounce back? In an industry that builds stars overnight and drops them just as fast, Rachel's next move might be the most important one of her career. Let us know in the comments. And if you want more behind-the-scenes drama from the entertainment world, check out our next video. You won't want to miss it.